Well, Mariel, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
We've just been watching the budget. We both had our ideas what we felt might happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. What we're really going to get into is how it affects you. What are your thoughts on it as a business owner? For the purpose of today, we've got all different speakers, and I'm one of them. You're one of them. We have a tax expert who's going to speak a little bit. And then we have somebody from more economic banking. But for us, it's about how is it really going to affect business owners and employers ultimately. So before we do that, your brand, Club Mexicana, just give us a quick 30 seconds on your brand.
So I run Club Mexicana. We've got 2 restaurants in London. Ambitions to have more.
Yeah.
One in Soho, one in Covent Garden. We've been going for about 5 years now. And yeah, it's been an interesting year. Had our doors shut for most of it.
Yeah.
But
well, you opened up one of your restaurants it was going to be pre-COVID and then?
Yeah, so our Soho restaurant was about to open in March, and then I think lockdown was announced on the day that we'd scheduled for opening. So the build was ready, everything was in, but we couldn't actually open the doors, which was really disappointing, obviously. And then we managed to get open for the first time in August in the midst of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme.
Yeah.
Which was a baptism of fire. Yeah, it really helped. But then obviously got shut down again in the November lockdown, and then we opened up again for about 10 days in December, and then shut down again for the December lockdown, and doors have been shut since then.
And I know you're a massive advocate of your industry. I know that during the lockdown you've been doing community-based stuff and pulling together as an industry. So just give us a quick bit on that as well.
I think when lockdown first started, I sort of spearheaded a group of us, people who worked in hospitality, doing what we do best. I mean, we all had our doors shut down, and we've all got this innate desire to nourish people and keep people fed. And with our restaurant shut, we sort of went to where the need was greatest, and that for us was in the hospitals, the NHS frontline workers, and intensive care unit workers in particular. So at one point we were delivering across 5 different hospitals in London, all the ICU teams. So we did about 20,000 meals over the course of the first lockdown. And then as that need sort of moved into more community-based stuff and school meals vouchers started going a bit wrong, we kind of pivoted the pivot and moved it into a food bank, which is actually still going up until schools reopen next week.
Brilliant. So your industry deserves some help then. So we'll just listen to the budget.
Yeah.
We talked, I think this morning, even before we went on, we thought it'd be in three stages. We thought, and it went that way. It was like, how do we repair right now to reopen? And then how do we pay for this? And then there was a bit of the green. So from your perspective as a business owner, you're shut and you're going to be shut. I think you were able to reopen in April because you've got
we've got a little bit of outdoor space, so hopefully we can open them. But the majority of people in hospitality will be able to open late May.
Yeah. So let's talk about the things he went through. Let's talk about furlough first. How does it help you? He's extended it to June. You're still paying the national insurance and the pensions for that time. People in your industry and anybody else that's shut. Yes, the employee is getting 80% of the wage paid for by the government, but the employer's got to pay the pensions and the NI. Was it enough for you from that perspective?
I mean, we expected it to be extended to minimum June. I'm surprised that they're going to add on the incremental increases in terms of the employer contribution. I think most industries will not be able to keep people on and pay 10% or then 20% of their wage for them to be sat at home doing nothing whilst the business tries to recover. I think, the NI payments and the pension payments, they've been difficult enough for businesses to swallow, and particularly in the hospitality industry. We pay thousands every month just to keep our employees on furlough. And when we can't operate as a business, that's been really, really difficult. So, I don't see how people can continue it past June.
I'm totally with you. I don't understand how we've gone from originally covering everything to then we think we're coming out, and we're talking now June, July when you changed it 2020 to, you've got to start contributing. I kind of understood it at the time.
Yeah.
We thought it was coming out of it.
Yeah.
But now we've gone back into third lockdown.
Yeah.
Some people have almost been in a constant lockdown. It's like he's not gone back to his original, and I don't get that. So
No.
I'm with you in that. I've thought that, what's the point in the July and August? I actually only think that is opportunist for not your industry, but other industries to slowly bring people back.
To keep it going,
And part-time furlough people that might not have an ordinarily good July and August. So it's like, why sort of stretch it out a little bit rather than just give to the people that actually need it? I feel like that's what that's done.
100%. I'm quite confused by it. And he could have switched it up by industry as well. He could have done something specific for the hospitality, tourism,
100%.
travel industries. But we haven't seen that. And I think ultimately, if hospitality industries don't get on their feet really, really quickly when we have this May reopening and can get all of their full workforce back, unfortunately, I feel like in July and August, you'll see a lot of redundancies.
Yeah. Yeah. He talked a lot about the grant. So there was a big £5 billion he announced a few days back. And I think that's up to, it's obviously all dependable on rateable value, but up to £16,000 in your industry. I think, was it £8,000 in non-essential retail, which is opening first?
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about that. Again, like, it's a big champion. You know, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm never going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but the costs that have been associated with keeping us closed, and we just touched on it, national insurance, pension payments, thousands every month.
Yeah.
Plus, as soon as we reopen, we'll have suppliers knocking on our door to pay the bills that we haven't managed to pay from before lockdown.
Yeah.
We'll have landlords knocking on our door to settle the rent bills.
Yeah.
It's not. Of course, it's nice. It's extra money added to the pot, but it doesn't really touch the sides. It doesn't touch the sides for a business the size of mine, and so I don't think that it will touch the sides of even bigger businesses. Some small businesses, particularly retail, if they've managed to stay open to some degree, selling online, click and collect, that kind of stuff, might help them. But I think it's a bit tokenistic, and actually that money would have been better used to either keep the VAT lower for longer, or going into the furlough scheme to stop that 10-20%.
Yeah, the VAT at 5%, only on food, isn't it? It's not on alcohol.
It's only on food, yeah.
How he's extended that to
the September,
and then it goes up for, I think he said, another 6 months beyond that.
6 months beyond that at 12.5%.
Yeah.
So
is that
halfway
positive
between,
for you, or?
Again, it's semi-positive.
Yeah.
I would have really liked the 5% to stay 5% for 12 months, because it will give us that extra breathing space. It will give us that time to recover. I think I speak for the whole industry when I said that the VAT refund hasn't been passed on so much in terms of prices. It's just enabled us to sort of try and recoup a bit more money to be able to keep staff on, to pay landlords, to pay suppliers, and keep the whole ecosystem of the industry going.
Yeah.
I think more than doubling the VAT rate at the end of September, when realistically we would have been open, we would have had 3 months open, all being well.
Yeah.
I think doubling that tax rate is going to be a really bitter pill for the hospitality industry to swallow.
Yeah. You mentioned a good point earlier in the day about rateable values, and obviously he agreed to, it's a non-payment of rates for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it was a 66%, 2/3% discount thereafter. But we talked earlier, and you mentioned that rateable value and rent, because the rents have now come down. The rateable values don't seem to have reflected that. What's your take on the whole?
Yeah, I mean, the business rates thing, again, it's a bit like the VAT question, where we kind of needed it extended for longer. Again, we will have been open just only for a few months before they're not hiked fully back up again, but, it's an increase. We're going to be paying 30% as opposed to nothing.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a big cost. It's thousands of pounds to lots of businesses. And the rateable values, I think, is something that needs urgent review, because your business rates are usually sort of about half of what your rent is. So you pay 100 grand on a site and your business rates might be 50 grand. Rents have fallen over the past year. Landlords cannot command as much money for commercial properties as they used to. Therefore, that 100 grand site might have gone down to 75. But if the business rates are still at 50, again, it makes it really unmanageable for businesses. And actually what they seem to be trying to do with this budget is get businesses to invest, get businesses to do new things, to create new restaurants, to create new bars. That's not going to happen unless they look at those rates and bring them just a touch down, so it's much more manageable for businesses, and it's attractive, and it's an attractive proposition to build something new.
Yeah. Two more things to touch upon then. I think one is the loans. My personal opinion of loans is I wonder whether people have had enough on creating debt just to get through. So yes, Sedulo and Bounce Back Loan have finished at the end of March. He's pretty much mentioned something that sounds different name, but as the same thing. We'll see what the actual legislation comes out like. But it sounded like it was an extension of the Sedulos, even though it's a recovery loan, I think is what he phrased it. But so that's my opinion on the loan situation. But I wonder how many people will be willing to get loans when we've now been hit by a corporation tax increase from 19% to 25%. Doesn't hit for 2 years, mind. But actually, many businesses like yours who have been closed might just about get back on the feet. If they're in your industry and they've took either a bounce back or a Sedulo loan in the past, they'll then be expected to pay that loan back to the government, but they're now expected to go on that profit, which you need profit to pay back your loan, of course. They're now expected to pay 25%, which I thought was steep, and a 30-odd% increase in that particular cost. Last question for us for a brief summary then of where you're at with it all. But what did you think about the hike from 19 to 25%?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, I think a lot of businesses will look at the idea of profits and just even the pure idea of profits happening anytime soon as a nice idea. And but I think the idea that you're going to be taxed another 6% on top of what you already would be, again, it feels like punishment rather than pushing you to actually try and make a profit. And and I think that's what companies invest in stuff, and they invest in people, and they invest in property and everything that gets the market going. They do that because the ultimate ideal is to make a profit. And then if you're going to have more of that taken away from you, is there enough incentive there? And I think, and obviously with things like loans, it isn't something that our industry wants to get into. No. Coming out of the last 12 months, would you like to take on X amount of debt and carry that forward over the next few years? No thanks.
But wrap it up for us then. What did you think? What was your summary of the budget?
Generally quite disappointed actually. I think Rishi has been very generous to the hospitality and tourism industry over the course of the last 12 months. I've always thought that everything that he does, whilst it's been surprisingly generous, it's never been quite enough. It's never gone quite far enough. It's never been for quite long enough. And I think this is more of the same really. It's cut. I think it's going to cut us off before we've had a chance to recover. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in. Thanks for your opinion. Appreciate it. No worries.
Thanks a lot.